Let's return to that story in Ukraine. Russia launching a massive missile and drone attack on the capital Kyiv overnight and other areas of the country. I can show you some of the nighttime pictures in the skies above central Kyiv. At least 6 people, we're told, were killed, dozens more wounded in these attacks, including children.
The clock on the wall of the Ukrainian command bunker read 6:24 a.m. 4 minutes. That's all the time they had left. 4 minutes until the quiet, pre-dawn darkness over occupied Kherson would be torn apart. But for now, at Gyartyskoye Airbase, it was business as usual. The rotors of 2 Russian Mi-24 Hind attack helicopters hung motionless in the damp Crimean air. Inside the cockpits, crews mumbled through pre-flight checklists, their breath fogging in the cool morning. They were preparing for what their commanders had billed as a daring raid, a deep strike mission into Ukrainian-held territory. They felt confident, protected by layers of the world's most advanced air defenses. Just a few miles away, in the black water of Sevastopol harbor, a different kind of team was at work. Russian PDSS Special Forces divers, the best of the Black Sea Fleet, were quietly loading specialized cargo onto a BUK 2190 tugboat. This wasn't just any harbor workhorse. It was a floating command center for underwater sabotage, carrying millions in classified diving gear, demolition charges, and underwater propulsion vehicles. Their mission: to wreak havoc behind Ukrainian lines. What the Russians didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have conceived, was that their meticulously planned operation was already dead in the water. It just didn't know it yet. Because 22 minutes earlier, under the cover of absolute darkness, 3 low-profile Ukrainian USVs, uncrewed surface vessels, had slipped from the side of a friendly vessel in international waters. They moved with a sinister purpose, their electric motors humming almost silently. Each one carried 4 aerial drones on waterproof launch rails, like a mother shark carrying her pups. Their speed was a steady, relentless 35 knots. They were the delivery system for a package of pure, garage-built vengeance. But warfare is a game of brutal chance, and the first roll of the dice nearly ended everything. A Russian Raptor-class patrol boat on a mind-numbingly routine sweep was where it wasn't supposed to be. Its radar operator staring into the green glow of his screen, 3 faint heat signatures, low on the water, racing towards the Crimean coast. Contact, 3 bogies, bearing 275, speed 35 knots. He barked. The Raptor's captain didn't hesitate. Engage! The night erupted. The Raptor's 14.5mm heavy machine gun hammered into the darkness, its tracer rounds special bullets that glow so gunners can see their fire stitching a line of deadly fireworks across the water. The gunner, his face set in a grimace, walked his fire closer with each burst. Geysers of salt water erupted just meters from the fleeing USVs. The Ukrainian drones were trapped. Maximum speed 35 knots. Open water all around. Nowhere to hide. It was a predator closing on its prey. What would you have done in that situation? Fought? Run? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The lead USV pilot, his heart hammering against his ribs, saw only one chance. A desperate, suicidal chance. On his digital chart, the shallow volcanic reefs near Cape Canias glowed red, a navigational nightmare. To any sane captain, it was a death trap. To him, it was a shield. He veered hard right, aiming straight for the shallows. The other 2 USVs, reading his move, split left and center, forcing the Raptor to make a choice. Aboard the Raptor, the depth finder started screaming its warning. 2.5 meters? 2? 1.8. The captain's blood ran cold. He knew these waters. 1 more meter, and the volcanic rock below would tear the hull of his boat open like a tin can. It was an impossible decision. Let the drones escape or risk his ship and crew. He slammed the throttles into reverse. All stop. It was the window the USVs needed. At exactly 1,800 meters from the halted Raptor, they initiated emergency deployment. Hydraulics hissed. Launch rails, previously lying flat, snapped vertical. In a simultaneous, breathtaking moment, 12 drones rocketed skyward, their electric motors screaming as they clawed for altitude at 50 meters per second. The Russian gunner tried to track them, swiveling his massive weapon upward. He grunted in frustration, hitting the physical stop on his mount. Maximum elevation, 60 degrees. The drones were already at 75. A simple, brutal lesson in geometry had just defeated a $1 million weapon system. The Raptor, toothless and humiliated, could only watch as the specks disappeared into the gloom. But the drone's survival was far from guaranteed. In fact, their real battle was just beginning. As they formed up at 2,000 meters, their internal navigation system suddenly went haywire. Screens flickered, coordinates jumped erratically. The Romans' BN electronic warfare system, activated from the Tarkinku Peninsula, had them in its grip. Imagine someone turning on a 400,000 watt radio jammer that blocks every frequency you can think of. Your Wi-Fi router puts out 1/10 of a watt. This thing was a sledgehammer, turning the entire electromagnetic spectrum into a wall of static. But the Russians weren't just blocking GPS, they were feeding it false information. The navigation screens on the drones showed them 15 kilometers from their actual position. If they'd followed those lying coordinates, they'd have flown their expensive, explosive payloads straight into an empty ocean and drowned. But the Ukrainian operators had prepared for this. With a click of a switch, they went dark, they switched to inertial navigation. Think of it like walking through your own house with your eyes closed. You don't need to see. You count your steps, you feel the turns, you remember the layout. The drone's internal gyroscopes and accelerometers became their eyes, tracking every movement without a single outside signal. They were flying blind, guided only by memory and math. The two teams split. 6 drones turned inland toward Gavardoya Airbase, 4 descended toward Silvestol Harbor. 2 remained high, acting as silent, orbiting communications relays. The sun began to crest the horizon, painting the Crimean coast in hues of gold and orange. It was a beautiful dawn, and it would provide the perfect cover for what came next. At 6:17 a.m., 4 drones descended through the morning fog towards Silvestol Harbor. The naval base was a fortress, bristling with Panzer S, 1 missile systems, radar arrays, and hundreds of watchful sailors. But the drones had one critical, almost laughable advantage. Nobody expects an attack moving at bicycle speed. The Panzer S1 system locked onto the drones immediately. This thing can track a tennis ball from 20 kilometers away. These drones should have been easy prey. But the system's advanced computer kept rejecting the lock. Why? The Panzer was designed to intercept cruise missiles screaming in at 300 meters per second. These Ukrainian drones were dawdling along at a mere 11 meters per second. The tracking algorithm literally couldn't believe something would fly that slowly on purpose. It's like having a speed camera that ignores anyone driving under 20 miles per hour because it assumes it must be a bicycle or a piece of trash. Big mistake. The drones dropped to 10 meters, skimming the wavetops. At this altitude, a phenomenon called radar multipath occurs. Radar waves bounce off the water and cancel themselves out. It's the same physics that makes your phone drop calls near certain structures. To the Panzer's radar, the drones effectively disappeared. The massive steel hulls of anchored patrol boats created perfect radar shadows, allowing the drones to weave between them like ghosts. A sharp-eyed sailor spotted them first, pointing and shouting. The Panzer operator, frustrated, switched to manual optical tracking, an ultra-expensive camera system, but the morning fog had rolled in, cutting visibility to 800 meters. The system needed 3 seconds of steady tracking to calculate a firing solution. The drones jinked and jived every 2, never giving the computer enough data. It's like trying to focus a camera on a hummingbird. By the time you lock on, it's gone. Their target, the BUK 2190 tugboat, was moored at Pier 7. 2 sailors manning the tug's DSHK heavy machine gun finally spotted the incoming threats at 400 meters. The weapon roared to life, firing rounds the size of human thumbs. But the mount only elevated to 60 degrees. The lead drone was coming from almost straight above, diving at an 80-degree angle. It presented a target area of exactly 0.09 square meters, about the size of a large pizza. Here's the thing about human reaction time. It takes about 250 milliseconds to see something and pull a trigger. At 200 kilometers per hour, the drone traveled 14 meters in that quarter second. The gunner was literally shooting at after images, his rounds always trailing behind reality. The first drone slammed into the bridge windows at 140 kilometers per hour. Its shaped charge, a copper cone wrapped in 3 kilograms of explosives, detonated, creating a jet of molten metal moving at 8,000 meters per second. It punched through steel and glass like they were tissue paper. The bridge, the missile shot perfectly between two of them, the fuse never detecting anything substantial enough to trigger. The mathematics of destruction had failed them. The 6 drones fanned out over the airfield. Their simple cameras started pattern matching, comparing the live feed against stored images. It took 3 seconds. Target acquired. An Mi-24 Hind and an Mi-8 transport helicopter sat on the maintenance apron. Battery warnings flashed urgent red, 8% power, 90 seconds of flight time. This is when the human defenders made their last stand. 4 PKM machine gun positions opened up simultaneously, filling the air with tracers. But hitting a small, agile drone with a machine gun is like trying to shoot a specific mosquito in a swirling swarm with a pellet gun. The problem wasn't the weapon, it was human psychology. In training, you learn to lead a predictable target. These drones were anything but. They accelerated, decelerated, climbed, and dove in a random, deadly ballet. The gunners were always shooting where the drone had been, their tracers chasing shadows. Fear set in. You know you're going to fail, your hands shake, you second-guess yourself. 2 drones performed a pop-up maneuver, climbing high and flying straight to draw fire. It was a sacrifice play. Every military instinct screamed to engage the easy target. As all 4 gunners swiveled upward, the other 4 drones scattered at different altitudes. The gunners managed to hit 2 of the decoys. One spiraled down in smoke, another wobbled into the ground, but 4 made it through clean. The math, cold and unforgiving, had played out exactly as predicted. At 6:28 a.m., the first drone hit the Mi-24's cockpit canopy. The shaped charge detonated its molten copper jet, slicing through the cockpit, finding the hydraulic lines. Hydraulic fluid, which ignites at 210 degrees Celsius, met copper at 3,000 degrees. A flash fire erupted, cooking off the 33mm cannon ammunition. The helicopter was torn apart from the inside. The second drone slammed into the Mi-8's auxiliary fuel tank. JP-8 aviation fuel, with a flash point of just 38 degrees Celsius, spilled and ignited, creating a pool of fire that spread under the already burning Mi-24. The chain reaction was inevitable. In less than a minute, 2 helicopters worth $32 million were burning wreck. In just 43 minutes, a Ukrainian unit using cheap garage-built drones had achieved the impossible. They had sunk a critical special forces support vessel, destroyed 2 attack helicopters, and wiped out millions in irreplaceable equipment. They had not just disrupted the raid, they had dismantled an entire special operations mission before it even began. This wasn't just a successful strike, it was a statement. It proved that ingenuity and courage could defeat brute force and budget. It was the proof that a great value brand weapon could defeat the Whole Foods version, anytime, anywhere. The Russians were left with a smoldering airfield, a sinking tugboat, and a stark new reality. The rules of the game had changed. What do you think was the single most critical moment in this entire operation? Was it the USVs luring the Raptor into the shallows, the drones slipping past the Tor radar sweep, or the psychological trick with the decoy drones at the end? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more deep dives into how modern asymmetric warfare is changing the battlefield, tell me what topic you want next. Drone electronic warfare? Naval special operations? Let me know. Bye for now.